Welcome to Inspired by Design, the podcast where we explore the tools, stories, and insights to help you rediscover your authentic self and navigate life with less resistance. I'm Katie Rupert, a former hustle and grind overachiever on a thrilling and messy journey. I love to share what I'm learning and help others in self-discovery using human design. So, if you're seeking a way to move forward, let me be your weekly mindset coach and share stories to inspire you to action towards your unique purpose without the force or burnout. Welcome. Today on Inspired by Design, I am joined by Kate Kripke. She's a maternal mental health expert, transformative coach, and the founder of the Calm Connection System. Kate helps high-achieving women break free from emotional overwhelm, guilt, and burnout in motherhood. Through her work, she blends science, self-compassion, and emotional resilience to guide mothers back to themselves, not by doing more, but by slowing down, regulating their nervous systems, and aligning with what matters most. Her approach reminds us that thriving as a mother doesn't mean sacrificing personal success. It's about building deep connection with your children while continuing to pursue your own passion. Whether you're in the thick of parenting or stepping into a new chapter of motherhood, Kate's wisdom will help you return to yourself in the most grounded and honest way. Kate, thank you for being here. I'm so happy to have you on Inspired by Design.
Katie, I'm happy to be here, and I love that we share a name.
I know, how fun, right? Kate is like a special heart name for me. That's what my dad and my grandma called me.
Well, you know what's so funny is it's opposite for me. So when I was growing up, everyone called me Katie. And I actually have a funny story. I tried to go back to Katie. I turned 50 a couple of years ago, and I was like, I want to be Katie again. And I tried to get people to call me Katie, and they just wouldn't do it. So I never stuck, but I was a Katie. People who know me best call me Katie. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's like the endearing name. That is kind of fun. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, of course, on this podcast, we have all of our conversations through the lens of human design. It's just my favorite tool to fast forward exactly what you're doing, right? Like figuring out, how do I regulate my nervous system and show up as my most authentic self so that I can support the people in my life, right? What's best for me is what's best for everyone else. So totally. Let's tell the people about your human design. You are a manifesting generator. Me too. So fun. Same name, same type. Yeah. Manifesting generators, they have lots of ideas. They work really fast, and variety is the key to life. They need to have like 14 jobs. It doesn't have to be a job that you're paid for, but just like interests. And because you're a sacral inner authority, that just means go with your gut. It's a heck yes, or it's a no, or no for now. So whenever you are navigating your life, anything you're drawn to as a manifesting generator is meant for you. And it's meant to be that little puzzle piece that you pick up and you put in your bag. And at the end of the game, the season, you pour that bag out, and this all these little puzzle pieces of all the random things that you love, they make this beautiful, beautiful piece of art, and they become you. Your personality profile says you're a 3-5, which is this scientist, let's get our hands dirty, meets the heretic leader that's here to universalize problem solving for a large mass group of people. And what I just love is that looking at your website, you know, you're a speaker, a therapist, you got the big voice on having your own podcast. All of these things are so fitting to your design. And we just met, you know, so it's so fun to see someone like thriving within their design, even if it's not something that you intentionally use as a tool. So how does that sound? Does that sound like you?
It does. I'll tell you something hilarious. Like, I have never had my human design read before, although, as I was saying before we started recording, I have lots of friends and colleagues who are very interested in human design. So I'm like thrilled about this part of our conversation, because I'm like, yes, I love it. Yeah, it sounds very much like me, you know, in my work and my personal life, but I'm noticing a lot in my work. There is so much I want to be doing. And it's interesting to hear you reflect back, because as a provider, right, those of us who have a mission, big dreams and ideas, it's easy to get distracted by all the many things we want to do. And I've learned important for me to also not lose the bigger picture in all the little exciting things that come my way. So it's interesting that you brought that up because I happen to be particularly in a place like that right now where I'm trying to sort of clean out the junk drawer, so to speak, of my work and really just focus on the things that matter most. But there are these little parts of me that are like, no, but I don't want to put that one down. So that feels very true.
And if there's something that pulls you towards it, you're probably not done with it. So
Yeah.
that's
I
just
love
the
that.
thing. It's like go towards it if you have the life force for it. And as a Manny Jen, man, you just create more energy if you're interested in it. It's not
Mm.
about I'm supposed to do this and I gotta get rid of this. I gotta stay on the straight and narrow. It's just not about that for us at all. There's no linear
Yes.
pathway.
Yes.
The only time you let something go is when the life force is gone. Yeah, I don't really feel like doing that. When it starts feeling like resistance, that's when it's like, okay, I already got my puzzle piece. Let's move on here.
I love the metaphor of the puzzle piece. I'm a big advocate of this idea of the full body yes, which I'm
Mm,
sure you've heard that term before, but you just referred to that as well. It's like, what is my
absolutely.
body saying? Even if something is not, has sort of challenge along with it,
Mhm.
I do know. I will like I can, when I'm clear, I'm clear. So I love that.
Heck
That feels
yes.
very true
Oh,
too.
it feels so good. I got chills just hearing you talk about it. Like that passion there, that's exactly where you want to be. So you're
Yeah.
totally embodying this design.
Yeah.
That's so fun about this week in particular, if I can just nerd out for hot
Yes,
seconds.
please.
Um,
Please, please.
so, well, first of all, today is my 40th birthday.
Have you, Bergen, you're
I
spending it
know.
with me
I'm
on this
excited to.
call? Oh,
Yes.
that's amazing. Happy
So
birthday.
the reason I say it is, well, first of all, that does mean that I am the first degree of Leo. So here I am in my like, we're shining here on the podcast, getting our voices heard. But the reason I want to mention it is you were talking about like you're reflecting on things that you're doing. Well, right now, our human design transit is 56, which is the light I'm here to shine. It's about being a wanderer or an explorer or someone that tells stories through metaphor and like reflects back on life and can pull the nugget out and tell the story. And it's going to inspire someone to solve their own problem. And inside of this special energy that's only here for like a very short 5, 6 days, what's being asked of all of us, because we all have access to this when the sun is hanging out in gate 56, it's all about reflecting on what have I learned, where am I going, what adventure am I in, what story do I have to tell from the lessons that I've learned. And it really does have that like five energy, the five in your profile being I'm here to solve problems. So what problem do I want to solve and how do I want to share that in the best way possible? So you kind of thinking about what am I going to be doing? It's the perfect timing for you to do that. Reflect, review, redefine, and then taking some of that new Leo energy that we have is about the inner child and being playful and being creative and like going back to those passion projects that you still have life force for. And that's for everyone here. So anyway, thanks for letting me nerd out. I love that energy. And I think it's the perfect time to record a podcast because we're going to have some like fantastic stories. I don't even know what's going to come out, but everyone's going to be hanging on our every word since we're in this sun gate right now.
Well, I'm going to share something with you.
Yeah.
And it's profound and meaningful and important given what you just said. So I just spent the last 12 days in Los Angeles, California, with my brother and my 88-year-old dad as he was dying. And he passed away on Monday. And we were with him for the last, almost 2 weeks before he passed. And I am in a time right now, because coming off of that, I just got back last night, back to Colorado, and I'm sort of coming, and it's this very profound time for me. He was my last parent that was alive. So, gosh, there's so much that comes with that when suddenly both our parents are no longer on this planet. But I am in this very profound place, have been for the last 2 weeks and today, of all these things you just talked about, right? Talk about inner child and kind of taking what we've learned and trying to decide what do we do with these things and how can we bring the lessons we've learned into our current life, both with my own children and also the women who I work with and parent-child relationships. And anyway, so I am ripe right now for all of these things as well. So there you go, Katie.
Oh, thank
We'll
you.
meet. We'll meet today in this place.
I'm so sorry about the loss of your
Thank you.
father.
Thank you.
To be with him. And thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that vulnerably. Yeah, you never know what people are going through, you know? You just
Well,
don't.
you never know. And I think, we'll talk about the common connection system today a bit, or at least parts of it that I think are valuable for all of us, your listeners, my clients, myself, you. But I think there's something really profound that happens when we learn how to be in relationship with ourselves
Mm.
and how that process allows us to be in deeper relationships with other people, right? Whether it's our kids or our own parents or other people. And yeah, I appreciate the kind words. And here we are. This is life, right?
Yeah.
None of us get out of it alive. Like we all will come to our end. And so I think there's something interesting when we can invite love into the dying process, and whether it's the little things that leave us on an everyday basis or the people that come and go. So
Yes. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. It's beautifully said. And also there is beauty in that whole
yeah,
process, you know,
yeah,
you can always,
yeah,
always seek the beauty there. Well,
totally.
gosh, I mean, that's a great segue into what you do, because becoming who we are and showing up as who we are and owning that piece, like really having that relationship with ourselves, is the starting point. And as a mother, and then being connected to all kinds of mothers over the years, I see such a need for this message that you are living out loud, that you're sharing, that you're trying to support other people, this mission, this passion that comes inside of you, because you can't help but share it. I want everybody to know about it, but your work, it comes from such a heartfelt place. I know it's personal to you, and I want to hear you share in your words about, like, what is this maternal mental health? What is that mission? And I know it's about moms reconnecting to themselves, but tell us about how you got here and what you're doing. I just tell us your story and however
Yeah.
to share it.
Yeah, great. So thanks for asking. So I think I'll start by just giving a little snapshot of what it was like for me growing up. So I was raised by two very high achieving, very anxious parents. They loved me to pieces. Whether or not I would felt loved by them was never the question. But they were high achievers. They were quote unquote type A. They were perfectionists. They did amazing things in their lives. And so I'll answer your question about maternal child mental health in a moment, but I do think it's really important that all of us realize that we become who we are as adults based on who we were taught to be as children, right?
Sure.
For better or for worse. And I struggled with a ton of anxiety for so much of my life. I had really severe postpartum anxiety after my now 18-year-old was born. So I've got two daughters, 16 and 18. And I became really committed early on in my career to work with women who were becoming mothers so that we could set those women up to be mentally well enough to raise mentally well kids. And what does that mean? Well, we don't need to be perfect. Mental health, by the way, does not mean that we feel happy all the time. It actually means that we're willing to feel the whole gamut of feelings that comes with being human, and that we have, right? And that we have healthy coping techniques to get us back to a baseline of well-being when we feel these other things that we might call unpleasant, right? But it is so important that we have the ability to navigate our own nervous system and find mental well-being, because our children borrow from our nervous systems. So maternal mental health and child mental health are deeply interconnected. And I just decided pretty early on in my career that I wanted to help mothers find that emotional, mental well-being so that they could have the kind of relationships with their kids that they want most. And I think most of us would say we want the kind of relationships with our kids where we feel joy and connection, where we can be there for our kids when they're struggling, that they feel safe enough to come to us, that we can have the kind of deep, fulfilling relationships that extend way past childhood into adulthood. We all, quote unquote, want that. Most of us do not know how to access that. So I really wanted to help mothers find that kind of relationship with their kids.
I love that. I was so hanging on every word. I was like, oh yeah, next question. Um, I love it. And I so resonate with what you're saying. I think, I'm assuming every mom would, right? Like we want to be heard and seen by our parents. And then we want our kids to feel safe. I feel that way so deeply with my daughter. She's 12, starting to be in that teenage.
You're in it. You're in it.
I'm like, there's this hilarious little, like, I don't know, real meme that that Tina Fey does. Like, you know, you go in and you talk to your teenager, like, hey, so I was thinking we might have dinner. Like, do you think that would be cool? Like, just getting awkward, trying to connect with them. And I know there's just so much more to it, but I feel like so many people, like what you said about not being able to access it. Like even people that study things like this, connecting that inside of a family relationship where I feel like I'm a different person on than off. Not that I'm trying to wear a mask, but it just feels different, you know? So
can I comment on something you just said?
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that happens for us, and I would call myself a high achieving woman. And let me describe what I mean by that, because I think many of your listeners will resonate. You know, those of us who have often, if not always, had big goals, and who tend towards perfectionism, who are doers, right? Like we're busy, we like to stay busy, but who our sense of self can be really defined by our achievements. So when we don't reach that goal, when we don't achieve that thing, it's not just disappointment about not reaching the goal or achieving that thing, it's our sense of self is at risk, right? And we tend to move through life using a certain part of our brain that helps us achieve. We're problem solvers, we're fixers, we're organizers. We like to be in control, we like to manage, all those things that are really useful for getting things done. Many of us, maybe not all of us, but many of us were raised in families where there wasn't a lot of room or support for emotional experience. Right? We may have been raised by parents where the focus of our parents on us was getting things done and getting good grades and doing well at things, right? Or when we felt emotionally uncomfortable, our parent may have tried to fix it for us very quickly, right? We somehow were taught directly or indirectly that emotional experience was to be avoided. So we got really good at strengthening and living through that achievement-oriented brain. Connection requires a different part of our brain, and it requires an ability to feel, to be in the moment of uncertainty and unpredictability. So when we think about trying to connect with our kids, we think about doing. What do I need to do? What do I need to, that beautiful Tina Fey meme, which I just love so much, is all about like, I have to say the right thing and I have to take her to the cool restaurant and I have to be the cool mom. It's all about doing, right? But real connection happens in the being, in the slowing down, in the feeling. And many of us were not taught how to do that.
Wow. You know, Kate, I knew I loved your message, but I didn't anticipate our conversation being so like in my emotions, right? I'm doing this very thing right now with you in the moment. I'm this high achieving. Let's get this done. I'm so excited about the podcast. And also my heart and the connection and like thinking, what does this mean for me? So I'm bringing it right into me. But a couple of things that you said that I do want you to talk a little bit more about. A lot of the reason why I have this podcast is I was burnout, high achiever, doing all the things. And then, aha moment. That's not what I really want. It just feels good because that's what I was trained to do. So I have two things here. So when it comes to burnout, overwhelm, and when you're there, when you're working with a mom that's in that place, high achiever, and they're in that place, what are some of the things that they're going to need to think about first? And then second, do you think it's the overachieving, high achieving moms that struggle the most, or like, because I also see moms that almost decide my life doesn't matter anymore and I'm all in, my life only matters about my kids. And of course we can't control our kids' success either. So, and I don't know if that's the same mom or if it's just a different flavor. So
I love this question so much. And they're interconnected questions. So let me start, Katie, by saying that a lot of my work is based on this well-studied psychological theory. Everything's a theory, right? That our deepest beliefs that we have about ourselves lead to the kind of thoughts we have on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And our thinking leads to how we feel emotionally, conscious or unconscious. Our emotions lead to certain behaviors and actions. And those actions, those behaviors lead to what our life looks like, right? The results of our life. And many of us, high achievers, have a deep fear-based limiting belief about ourselves that we're not enough.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily, some of us maybe have been raised by parents who told us that directly, who told us we weren't good or weren't enough. Most of us, it wasn't a direct statement. It was just that we learned that love, connection, appreciation, value was going to come with our exceptionalism. That unless we were exceptional, we weren't going to get what we wanted and needed. And so we have spent our entire lives trying to prove to the world that we are enough by never being satisfied with anything unless it's exceptional, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that leads inevitably to burnout and overwhelm because we might, and this is all dopamine too, right? We might get the hit of get that awesome podcast that we recorded that we feel so good about, or the job that we get, or the person who says, you look awesome today, or the whatever it is, we'll get that hit, but then really quickly, that won't be enough. We'll need more. And it's not that those things aren't enough, it's that we don't feel enough. And what we know about humans, not human design in the way that you would talk about it, but literally human, does the way we are designed as humans is what we feel about ourselves, we will project out into the world around us.
Yep.
So how we feel about ourselves is how we will see everything else.
Mm.
This is also where I want to back up and say, if someone's listening, it's important to recognize two things. Number one, these deep limiting beliefs that I'm talking about, I usually have this little stacking doll on my desk. You know, those Russian dolls, those stacking dolls? It's like we can look like we have it all together on the outside, right? We are doing a really good job being the person that everyone says, I can't believe that you do so much. How do you do it all? You're amazing. And we have the job and we've got the thing and our house is the house we've always wanted and we've got the marriage and all that stuff. But inside, like that teeny tiny little part of us is terrified that everyone's going to find out who she really is, right? So, you asked me two questions. The first question is, where does someone start? And I do think it's a really valuable, brave, important question to just pause and ask ourselves, how do I talk to myself? Like, what are the words I use with myself? How do I really think about myself? Because often we'll say, okay, I want my life to look and feel different. Therefore, I need to do some different things. We'll go to the action mode. I need to take a deep breath before I'm with my child. I need to take my child to do more so that we have more connected moments. I need to change my job. I need to be better about keeping my house clean. I need to whatever that thing is. But if our belief about ourselves is incongruent with that self-care, if we believe we're not okay, if we believe we're not enough, if we believe we're not worthy, those things won't last very long. We'll go right back into those old habits.
Or we won't enjoy them at all and don't know
Nope.
how to rest. So I'm
Nope.
physically getting a massage, but it is not doing what it's meant to do or whatever.
Exactly right. And we will be less likely to stick to getting the massage every 2 weeks because it's, a waste of time because we should be doing other things. And who am I to take care of myself, right? So you're right. You're right. So that's the place to start. It's just to ask ourselves that really brave question. Little side story, and then I'll get to your second question. When my now 18-year-old was a baby and I had postpartum anxiety, the way my postpartum anxiety showed up is that I was convinced there was something wrong with her.
Hmm.
She wasn't eating enough. I saw her as wasting away. I remember I thought she had all kind like autism. Like I was convinced there was something wrong with her. And when I really started to approach my own mental health from a different perspective, which is what I teach a lot of moms to do, I realized it was never about her.
Right.
My whole life, I had been convinced there was something wrong with me.
Hmm.
And I was just projecting all that onto my kid. And as soon as I learned how to poke some holes in those old fear-based limiting beliefs and really trust, wait, I am actually okay.
Mhm.
Then I start to see her as okay. But it wasn't that was the missing link, right? It wasn't about her at all. It had always been about me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's with every relationship, but it is quite powerful to think about it projecting onto a tiny baby human that hasn't
That's
given
exactly,
you anything.
exactly. That's exactly right. And so I can convince myself that I'm doing her a service by taking her to all these doctors or for micromanaging how much milk she's drinking, or like I can tell myself I'm doing it for her,
Right.
but it was all about me. It was
Right.
all about me.
So well intentioned, but
Oh,
that's the point. So,
totally.
yeah. And then are the people you
What
work
was the second?
just high achieving women, or
Oh, yes.
the types of women that show up to motherhood, and how you work with them? Because like I'm exactly what you've described, but
Yeah.
I in my mom's groups and things as I was growing up, I'm like, am I weird? Like I I do a lot of stuff. How are you spending all this time? Like, I don't know, the mom that's at the soccer field for 20 hours a week and not doing anything for themselves. Talk to me a little bit about these types of moms. I don't know that I know exactly the question I have to ask, but I feel like
Yeah, no,
it's a thing to say.
I totally hear what you're asking. So let's back up first and say the kind of the high achieving, let's call it a personality type for lack of a different term right now.
Sure.
The high achieving personality type is not dependent on a woman has a career or is a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
That in of itself is this like good enough is not good enough, right? I have to do it. We are all or nothing thinkers, right? Good, bad, right, wrong, all, nothing, right? We tend to sort of think in these black and white ways, and we throw ourselves into anything that matters to us, which of course is not bad.
Right.
When it's out of balance, it can be hugely problematic, both for ourselves and for our children, actually. So, interestingly, the women who report the most joy and happiness, and who, from a set of questions that can assess someone's attachment, secure attachment or not, and we can talk about that today if you want to, but that kind of stable, secure, safe attachment, the women who report the most satisfaction in those areas are the women who have things that they're involved in outside of motherhood. Okay, so it's really important to remember that when we're telling ourselves that our kid, we should sacrifice ourselves, we should say no to everything that it has to do with us because we feel like it's selfish and our only job is to show up for our kids. That's actually not good for our kids.
Mhm.
It's not good for our mental health. That will lead to burnout. It's also not good for our children because secure attachment requires both separation and connection.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the question you're asking, the question not question you're asking is important to reflect that we're talking about anyone, whether that person has a career outside of motherhood or who is a stay-at-home mom. We need, in order for us to be helpful, healthy, helpful to our kids and well, we need to have a greater purpose to our life besides just being a child's mother. And many of my clients want to pursue careers and feel some guilt around that because there's all these myths around what it means to be a good mom and how can I both be a good mom and be doing something outside of motherhood. I guess that's a both and answer.
Yeah.
Does that make
And
sense?
it's back to what you were saying about it's all or nothing. And we've kind of trained ourselves to think that way.
That's
I
right.
think this is a great time to introduce the Calm Connection system you offer. And for our listeners, we've got this masterclass that you pre-recorded. So it's on demand. Go to the show notes, grab this
Yeah.
masterclass, especially if anything we've said has been intriguing.
Yeah.
But walk us through, I know it's a 3-step system. Walk us through what it looks like and how you came up with this and why these 3 steps are most important for the moms that you're working with.
Yep. So, a little background. I started a clinic here in Boulder, Colorado called the Postpartum Wellness Center. It's now called the Parent and Family Wellness Center. I started that center to help mothers who are early motherhood to get support around things like postpartum depression and anxiety, right? So a lot of moms who are in those first, say, 5 years of motherhood and really struggling. I don't know if you know this, Katie, but the research says 1 in 5 women will struggle with depression or anxiety after having a baby. I think the numbers are much higher than that, but this is not an uncommon phenomenon. I actually realized during that work that I did, I was a clinician for about 15 years before I sold that clinic and moved on to coaching. My clients weren't getting better, right? They would feel better in this traditional landscape of psychotherapy. And then they'd go home and then they would, they'd go off. They'd be like, oh, I'm good. I don't need this support anymore. But then they'd come back 6 months later, a year later with the same struggles again. And it really became clear to me that the way we were treating depression and anxiety in early motherhood in the more kind of standard sense of psychotherapy and medication, we're doing two things. Number one, we were pathologizing these issues that I believed made perfect sense. There's no pathology here. The anxiety, the sadness, the loneliness, the isolation, the guilt, it all made sense. So let's not pathologize it. And number two, we weren't actually getting to the root cause.
Yes.
And
the nervous
right?
system, right?
Exactly.
A
The nervous
spoiler
system. Yeah, that's right. That if what is causing this scenario? Because a lot of my clients were like, well, if my baby just sleeps, I'll feel better.
alert.
Right? My anxiety is because my baby's not sleeping, or I have a baby with colic, or I have a kid who has special needs, or my partner is never around, or I have a pathology in my brain that's leading me to feel this way, right? There were all these external causes, and we don't want to ever blame a mother for what's happening in motherhood. And we actually really want to kind of step way back and say, wait a second, your goals and intentions and values are right here. The kind of mom you want to be. You know how you want to feel as a mother in relationship with your child. You know the things that bring you joy. And there are all these things that are getting in your way of accessing that. So let's look at what's getting in the way. Let's dig underneath and say, what is causing this? We cannot have the kind of relationship we want with our children if we don't know how to have a relationship with ourselves. And again, like you said, with anybody for that matter. And this can sound a little like, oh, okay, now we've lost some of your listeners because it's like, oh, I don't want to. And I'm going to tell you right now, 52 years of being on this planet, 2 teenage daughters, 20 plus years of doing this work. I am telling you right now that you don't need to tend to 12 balls. You just need to tend to one. And that's your relationship with yourself.
That's
you
right.
got it. And when we learn how to have what we might call a secure relationship with ourselves, which I'll tell you about in a moment, then what comes next is a much less effortful. We're still the logistics. There's still things to do, but it doesn't drain us the same way.
Yeah.
So the calm connection system takes you through a process where we start by clearing out, getting really clear on what are these old beliefs that we have about ourselves that may actually even be unconscious. We're walking around not even realizing we have them. What are they? What are the habits, right? The other question I ask myself all the time, and I ask my clients all the time, is what part might you be playing in the things that aren't working for you? It's not, how's it your fault? There's no shame and blame here, but like, where am I showing up in ways that I'm not even realized are contributing to the dynamic of disconnection, to the dynamic of burnout, right? That first part in the calm connection system is just getting clear on all of our blind spots because we can't change anything we're not aware of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And it's funny because we think we know, especially as high achievers. We're so used to knowing the answers that we think we know. We don't know.
My brain is exploding a little bit. So I hope this doesn't turn into Katie therapy.
No, it's great.
So one thing you said here was what I learned in like my life coaching training that changed the game for me. You're saying it so clearly, almost in the same language. And, I'm glad to hear that integrity is there with that kind of coaching, right? So basically how you were describing is we give our power away when we blame the circumstances. Well, if the baby will sleep, that's a circumstance, right? Well, as soon as they get a little older, then and we create these like something outside of us is going to help us when the circumstances are always changing. The only thing we really can control is us. So bringing it back to us. And what you said about the traditional psychotherapy, like that was my experience. All I knew how to do, what I was well trained to do, is to find out what I'm supposed to do and do it really well, just like a good girl. And so I did talk therapy so many times over and over and over. And then I'd make all the checklists, I'd be fine. And I never went deeper. And maybe the psychotherapist knew that, maybe they didn't, but I was like, oh, I guess I'm good. And then right back to it, because I was doing, I was trying, I was meeting someone else's measuring stick, but never getting below the surface. And that's that aha for me when I started learning how to be a coach. It was like, oh, actually circumstances are neutral. Like they really have nothing to do. It's all about what I think about it, and then in result what I feel like it, and then that's how I act. Like it's this cycle over and over, and we all do it. But the awareness of it and bringing it back home, I mean, that really is the key. And it also is the fix, not about blame, like what you're saying. I'm just it's just like it's coming together for me in new words, right? But it's not about the blame. It's about the, like, can I see I still have power? I still have control. It's just not over the circumstances. It's over me building that relationship with me, learning how to self-soothe, learning how to show up as the authentic person that I need to be. And then things like miraculously start to turn around. But getting to that point is difficult.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh, you just said so many important things there, Katie. So, first of all, I love what you just said. I mean, this is a very important statement. Like your listeners should pause and write this down, I think. Everything is neutral till we give it meaning.
mhm.
Everything is neutral until we give it meaning. And one of the things that makes early motherhood so profoundly painful, right? And you define that word any way your listeners would define it, uncomfortable, is that we bring to the table, being a mother, all this meaning with that from our childhood, from how we were raised, right? A baby crying might be a great example. A baby crying is just a baby crying.
Right.
Right. We will give that meaning based on whether or not our emotional needs were met when we were a child, essentially. Right. That's simplifying things, but it's really important to remember. The other thing that the words that I use is agency, right? We're talking about agency. Agency is the sense of I have choice and I have control. And if we believe that we don't have choice or control, we will feel terrified. We're wired to fear having no choice and no control. And one of the things that goes out the window for many of us, if we're not paying attention in early motherhood, is our sense of choice and control. I have no choice.
Hmm.
I can't control anything. And so what many of us high achievers try to do is we try to control the things that are outside of our control. Right? How my baby's feeling, whether or not my baby's sleeping or eating, what my partner is thinking, or how, like, we try to control all these things outside of us, and we only have control of two things, our own thoughts and our own actions, and that is it. So one of the things that helps us gain that sense of grounding again is to realize, okay, I do need a sense of choice and control in order to feel safe in my life, safe in quotes, in order to feel grounded, in order to feel okay. But where do I actually have access to those things? And we can have immense influence, but very little control.
Sure.
Right? When I know how to ground my own nervous system, when I begin to shift my thinking from I'm not okay to I'm actually inherently okay, even when I'm okay, even when I don't know the answer. I'm okay, even when I feel scared. I'm okay, even when I feel anxious or angry or sad or disappointed. When I can shift my language to really trust that I can feel steady and have my 2 feet on the ground, I will then show up in difficult situations very differently, right? And then it will ultimately have more influence on whether or not my child sleeps because my nervous system's going to be grounded. And that kid is
Right.
borrowing from my nervous
Yes.
system, right?
Wow. Yeah. That's cool. I'm so glad that your work is in the world. Thank you. There's something here that I want to ask about. Like, so
Yeah.
moms are always feeling like they're failing. Like, even if this is the first time they're hearing about, if your nervous system's regulated, that's how you influence the baby's nervous system. If this is the first time they're getting that, and maybe it's not hitting home, but there might be something that I want to explore. When a mom is feeling like they're a failure, or maybe they're listening to this conversation, like, see, I'm doing it wrong, right? You make it mean I'm doing it wrong. Like, how do you help someone in this place, like, gently reframe the story and start just taking that next right step to just test out, could doing it a different way support me? Am I worth taking that little step of change? What if it doesn't work? Like, all of those thoughts that will come.
Yeah.
Where do you start?
Yeah, great perspective. So if someone is hearing us talk about this and they are becoming really anxious and they're having thoughts like, see, I knew I was doing it wrong. See, I'm failing because I'm not calm all the time. See, there must be something wrong with me. I'm not doing this right. That tells me that there's a fear-based limiting belief that they have about themselves. Okay? Because everything's neutral till we give it meaning. So if one of your listeners is starting to get anxious hearing about this, no problem. Makes perfect sense, because underneath this is probably some belief that you're not enough. Because when you begin to learn, I am enough, I am okay, even when I make a mistake or I feel uncomfortable or I've missed something, then the reflection becomes less fear-based and more like, interesting. I wonder where I could do something differently, just like you're saying, right? The thought in the moment is going to change if we believe that we're inherently enough. So that's just a reminder to some of your listeners that, like, oh gosh, you may have learned something in this podcast episode today. You may be learning that there might be some old, limiting, fear-based belief you have about yourself that's keeping you from seeing mistakes as opportunities, right? So it's not just about, okay, I have to learn how to see this mistake as an opportunity. It's, I actually have to learn to poke holes in an old belief I have about myself that's just not true.
Yeah.
And begin to shift that. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm thinking about, as a young coachee, right before I ever started helping other people with stuff, I remember that people ask, what are your dreams? What are 10 things that you want? I want a list of 100 things you want to do. And what are the limiting beliefs that we need to change? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm so far away from being able to tell you what I want or what my limiting beliefs are. You tell me, I'm hiring you, like that kind of thing. That can be so overwhelming, especially if you're trying to do it right before you've learned the tools to use with the nervous system. So does that come up a lot for your clients as well?
Yeah, because these can feel like really giant concepts when people are barely able to get out the door to go to work in the morning. So
right.
A question for your listeners to consider is, how do you want to feel in your life? And what would you need to believe was true about yourself in order to have access to that feeling? What would you need to believe was true about yourself in order to have access to that feeling? That's a really good place to start.
And then they're going to say, I don't know. And then what will you say?
I would say, okay, if you did know, what would it be? If you believed that you knew, what would it be? Because I don't know is often a limiting belief. I actually really believe that when we quiet down the noise and we tap in, we do know. We may have been taught somewhere along the way that we don't know, or that someone else knows better than we do, but those are limiting beliefs, right? So someone might start with say, well, I would need to believe that I knew. Okay, so let's try that on for a moment. Let's pretend that you knew. Let's sit for a moment in the possibility that you are the woman that actually knows what you would need to believe in order to feel confident in your life.
I think a lot of people listening need to hear that, and sit with it, even if it's in the bathroom with the locked door, right?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
So what makes it worth it? So we know that there's like, okay, there's something more for me. And a lot of times, like, this is where my passion comes in, right? It's like, I want to work with people that, like, they know they're meant for more. They know there's something a little bit more. I know that there's something. I just, like, I don't know how, I don't know what it is. And so I stay stuck in this role or I stay stuck in the circumstance because I'm just like so overwhelmed with what it is. But you personally, and I know you've worked with lots and lots of people that have made some of these shifts. And even if it's messy, even if it's all the mistakes and all the, like, it's not going perfectly or linear or whatever, what makes it worth it to do the shift? What does it look like when the shift starts happening and it doesn't feel like rainbows and sunshines? What is it going to take for someone to make that shift and know and believe that it's going to keep being worth it to work with you or to work with somebody to take that step towards it, even if it feels like I have to climb a mountain or something?
Yeah. So they need to be willing to be wrong.
Mm,
As high achievers, we don't like to be wrong. And in fact, there's fascinating research around this, and what the data and different research studies have pulled out the same. But we would actually, as a human species, we would rather be right and fail than be wrong and succeed. Right. So some of your listeners might be like, yeah, but I really am the one person who's actually not okay. I really am the one. But
right.
Kate and Katie don't know me, but I really am not enough. I mean, I know that to be true, right? We have to be willing to be wrong, because until we're willing to open up to the possibility that thing we've been telling ourselves over and over and over again isn't true, until we're willing to open up to that possibility, confirmation bias. Our brain will only look for all the evidence out there in the world that proves that thing to be true for us. And it will skip over any evidence that shows that we actually are okay, or we actually are enough, or we actually are lovable, or we actually are capable, right? So I think it takes some bravery to say, yeah, I don't like the idea that I could be wrong. I could have been wrong about myself for my whole life, but I'm willing to be wrong in order to see where the little teeny tiny possibilities of something different might be. So in the calm connection system, after we've helped our folks understand what's really happening here, because we've been moving in this direction and this pace for so much in our lives, we don't even realize what's happening, right? So once we begin to see it and we begin to see, wow, I am actually defaulting to this internal perspective that I'm not okay, which was my situation. Or I've been defaulting to this internal perspective that I'm not capable, or I'm not enough. Okay, once I see that and I begin to learn how to poke holes and open up to some other possible beliefs, now I'm ready to learn some new skills.
Mm.
Now I'm really ready to learn how to actually see emotion as neutral, right? To really understand that uncomfortable emotion does not mean there's something wrong with me or something wrong with the situation. There is no secure attachment between ourselves with our children if we're not willing to feel emotional discomfort. Because by design, the definition of secure attachment is I am a secure, stable parent for my child to come to, whether they're happy or sad.
Yeah.
And if I get activated when my child's sad, then I'm not a secure, safe person for my child to come to when they're sad or angry. If I have a tendency to take everything personally and not see that my child's emotions are just part of being human, then I'm not going to be able to be that secure, safe person for my child to come to. So we need to learn new things about emotions. And this kind of the second part of the calm connection system is really nurturing ourselves and our relationships with ourselves and our nervous systems with learning how to access self-compassion, learning how to tend to our nervous systems, even when things are chaotic and messy, learning how to change those negative thoughts that we can get stuck in, learn how to feel unpleasant feelings and then shift them to more pleasant ones, right? All these skills that have to do with relating to ourselves so that we can show up for our kids. And then the third part of the calm connection system is really about parenting from that new secure base. So things like mistaken repair, so healthy boundary setting, right? Parenting from that place of I can find groundedness and be steady even in these crazy moments of uncertainty and unpredictability. And that in and of itself is the system that then helps us, as I said earlier, move forward with more ease, right? Those moments when we're running out the door and our child wants us to stay and is sad that we're leaving or we're passing them off to a childcare provider and they're reaching for us, right? What do we do in that? How do we put parent in that moment? How do we connect with our child in that moment without saying, fine, I won't go? Because that's not helpful for anybody, right? It's really not. How do we learn that it's okay to fill ourselves up and fulfill our own purposes in life outside of motherhood in service of our
Right.
children and our relationships? So once we have all these skills and tools and we now believe, okay, I inherently am enough, I'm inherently okay. That means that I can make mistakes. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say. We actually know, I talked about this a moment ago, and this mistake and repair. We have to make mistakes in order to build secure attachments with our kids, right? If we're perfect all the time, we miss that important part. The glue of the relationship is being able to come back and say, oh my gosh, I really screwed that one up.
Right.
So it is just a whole process, I think, of coming back to ourselves first so that we can redefine ourselves, so that we now have the container and the ability to learn these new skills and tools so that we can show up as parents and feel the way we want to feel as
Yeah.
moms.
Oh, beautiful. The most inspiring thing to me is like the hope of it, right? It is
Yeah.
possible. My first inclination is always like, okay, well, let's get this perfect, the system perfect, and then we'll be good. But the whole point is like doing it messy. We're learning the tools, we're using them. Oh, that didn't work. Like we'll just go back and forth. The living the life, the fluidity of letting things just be how they are and being in relationship right now, right here, right now, right here, just coming back to that and letting those emotions go through when they don't feel good. And just like, here I am, and I'll show you. Me doing that, me doing it messy is so inspiring because that shows my kids that they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to get it right all the time. So, I mean, there's just so much hope in that. Like, oh, it's so worth it. This work is so worth it, even if it feels heavy. And I will tell you, like, just doing some of these things that you're talking about has been so fulfilling. It makes me feel like all the times I got it wrong, it's okay. The self compassion and the love, it really is soothing and it makes you just a better human, but also inspires your kids to be what you're trying to make them be anyway. You want them to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I've been practicing this process, this system. I do it. I do these things every day in my life. They are what has led me to have the kind of relationships I have with my two teenage daughters. They're what has led me to be married for 20 years. They're what has led me to be able to be with my dying father, who I have a very complicated relationship with, all the way to the end from a place of connection and love. If I weren't doing these things, I wouldn't have all those other things. And it can seem like hard work, but I guarantee your listeners are already
they're
working really
they're
hard.
working harder, probably.
Exactly, because there is an essence of magic here. I mean, again, I really believe in good, sound clinical science and data and evidence-based practices, and it can feel like magic.
Yes.
Suddenly putting our kids to bed feels so easy. I can't believe how easy that was, right?
Right.
Or, helping our kid dropping them off at school or daycare or with a babysitter suddenly feels so much easier. So these things that feel so hard
Yes.
begin to be so much easier when we
That's
do
right.
this kind of work.
Right. And the frequency of love, connection,
That's right.
ability, they are higher frequencies. So that does feel like
Totally.
magic. And there is science to that. And like it's just if you leave from that place, it takes surrender, but it is like it does raise that frequency, that vibration, that all that the magic you talk about. I'm sure our listeners know what we're talking about. Like, yeah, give me some more of that.
It's funny. In my first call with a lot of folks who come and join this community, I will ask them, how do you want to feel in 12 weeks? The Calm Connection
Sure.
System is a 12-week program. And it's really designed to change our brains in 12 weeks based on what we know about neuroscience and attachment and all those things. And almost always, women will say things like, I just want to feel peaceful.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, I mean, this sounds crazy because this is so not me, but I'd really love to be able to go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
And they are notoriously shocked about how peaceful they feel and how they suddenly can go with the flow. And that go with the flow is something you just addressed, Katie. It's that ability to pause and pivot pretty quickly, right? To no longer define my okayness based on how my child feels or what's happening, but I can stay in connection to myself and the people who I care about, even when things are hectic and uncertain and unpredictable. And it's that experience that allows us to quote unquote go with the flow. We're less rigid in the way we think about things. And it's actually a pretty amazing way to live because we have so much more opportunity to access joy or humor or playfulness because we're not holding on so tightly all the time.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yes. Well said. Well, that is exciting. I hope that people try out this 12-week process with you. And you've mentioned attachment quite a few times during our conversation.
Yeah.
And I've done deep dives into this, like this where I am personally like, which attachment style am I and how does that work? You know, so I would love to talk about that. I know we're kind of out of time for today, but if you have one of your podcast episodes where you've dived deep, I'd love to link that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or, resources. What else do you want to share to make sure that you feel everything you want to say is in here?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I will say one thing about attachment. Secure attachment tends to be pretty buzzy these days. It's sort of in the pop culture talking about this. And you know, again, I want to leave your listeners and me and you, because I think it's helpful to always be reminded of this. Secure attachment does not mean that we're perfect. It does not mean that we get it right all the time. What it does mean is that we have the skills and abilities and capacities to tend to our own nervous systems when we feel escalated so that we can be more steady with our children, so that our children can feel seen, heard, and understood by us without us being distracted by our own experience. That's what secure attachment is. It doesn't matter if you're a working mom or a stay-at-home mom. It doesn't matter if you homeschool or send your kids to public school. It doesn't matter if you breastfeed or bottle feed. Like all these things that we think are required for secure attachment have nothing to do with what we're talking about here. You said earlier, it's accessible. Like even if we didn't have a secure attachment with our own parents, if they didn't provide that sort of sense of safety with us, we can learn how to do that with our kids. So I just want to sort of leave that because I do think with all the talk in the public and social media around secure attachment, there's a lot of myths that are being reiterated. And I really don't want people to hear this podcasting and feel like their kids are doomed or their relationships with their kids are doomed. They are not. I think that's just something I want to say as we wrap up.
Yeah, I love it. Anything else you want to share?
Oh gosh, I don't know, Katie. This has been fun. I think this feels like a useful place to end. And you know, I say that, and then I'll say yes. Here's one other thing to share. No one gets a hall pass from discomfort in motherhood.
Yeah, that's good.
The irritability, the worry, the fear, the anger, the heartbreak, the disappointment, it comes with the territory. We all experience it. I think the other thing is that we get so used to feeling exhausted and burnt out and saying this is just the way we need to feel. Please don't believe that either. So the feelings are going to be here, but we do not have to suffer in this experience.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Gosh, thank you for sharing your wisdom. I have had a ton of fun talking with you. I know I could talk to you over and over and over again. We should be friends.
We should be friends, Katie. Let's be friends. I'll be your friend. This has been really fun.
Yes.
I'm grateful. And I'm grateful for your human design explanation for me. That was super cool.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Love that.
It's just so fun. It's such a fun tool to use. And it's fun. I mean, as a mom, oh my gosh, over and over, I'm so grateful to know my kids' types because it really can influence.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, I'll link all the things up in the notes so that our listeners can get in touch with you and follow. I have like your handle and everything, your websites. Thank you. This was so awesome. That's all we have for this episode. So I will leave it there. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening in. And please go over to our Facebook group or share online what you take away, because I think the conversation after this episode can be really rich and supportive for lots of people. So let's make sure and do that.
Thanks for tuning in to Inspired by Design with Katie Rupert. If today's episode sparked something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Share your takeaways, subscribe, or even leave a review to help others find the show. For more tools and insights, visit my free Facebook group. And until next time, keep embracing exactly who you are and move forward one inspired action at a time.